Hey, what's up, guys? This is TJ with the Show Me Better in Real Life podcast. And I've got a super special guest this week. I guess you could say it's been a little bit since I've recorded a podcast. Um, but it's somebody I've known for a long time, and we'll get into all of that. But it is Jill Bryant that we have got on the podcast. So I'm super excited to have you, Jill. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to have a conversation with you and talk about all these things that you have for me.
Oh, me too. Me too. So, before we dive into anything that might be considered deeper, what would you say is your go-to like snack slash drink?
Oh, well, a classic Diet Coke, but it has to be from a fountain drink. It can't be like in a bottle
Oh,
or a can.
fountains.
It's got to be from a fountain.
Man,
There's also the
maybe that's
classic
a girl thing, man.
McDonald's
Because I
Coke.
I cannot stand that, and I think it's a texture thing for me. Like whenever
Okay.
I put my fingers on the styrofoam, it drives my brain
Oh,
crazy.
but you can get the
Yeah, I
plastic
guess
cups
that's
too.
true.
You can choose.
That's true.
Um, or like you can do what I do, which is you get it and then you put it in your cup you bring with you. That's your
Yeah.
accessory that day. But I love Diet Coke. I also, if I'm gonna not get a diet drink, then I love a McDonald's Coke. There's a different formula to it. Anyway, you're asking deep questions here, TJ.
I thought for
And
sure
then
you were gonna say like with you being what I would consider to be Southern, like that you were gonna say sweet tea for sure.
I hate tea.
Me too.
I can't. I can't get with it. I just tastes so weird to me. I think it also because like being a singer, I drink a lot of tea,
Yeah,
like, for my voice, and so, to me, the only tea that seems right is, like, an herbal tea
yeah.
for my voice, so when you drink like, my husband, like, Jeff, he will make tea, and I don't even know how many cups of sugar he puts in that stuff. It's like syrup, but, I mean, his sweet tea is apparently the best, but, yeah, I'm really simple. I I'm a I'm like a Coke, a Diet Coke, and a French fry type girl, or
Yeah.
Diet Coke and and like I don't know. I'm not really a snacker, so if I'm getting a snack, it's like because I'm out going grocery shopping and I don't have the kids, and I'm going through the drive-through by
Yeah.
myself, and it's a treat yourself type
You get
moment.
to be by yourself. That's crazy.
It's not very
That's
often.
crazy.
I
Especially
know.
with like the dynamic of your family. So
Yeah, we're not alone. I'm not alone very often.
right. Well, I guess I get alone times too, but not during the summer usually.
Yeah, it's usually like this morning when I woke up, I always know like I'm gonna have at least like they can just sense it. They're like, she's awake, we know. And they come and the two younger ones come in the room and it's just a gamut of questions from
Yeah.
and I've gotten to the point where before they even say a word, I'm like, don't ask me anything for the next 15 minutes.
Do they
And then
listen?
well, like they I think we have one that she just can't help herself.
Let me guess.
And
It's Eliza.
it's Eliza. It's our
Knew
9-year-old,
it.
yeah.
I called
She
it.
she can't help herself, but she's also our planner, so she likes to kinda know, like, she's gotta know what's happening, and I think sometimes she listens, sometimes she's like, "Okay," but other times she just rephrases it, so it's not a question, so it kinda sounds like a statement,
Right.
but I
She's
was
like, "So
wondering
you are gonna let me."
right. It would be nice to go to the pool today, is kind of what things kind of come out from
Eden
her
is the
sometimes.
exact same way. She's our 9-year-old, and she's like the one that is low key the bully in the house. She's low key the thinks that she's the boss of everything, and if you're not doing what she wants you to do and she couldn't convince you, then she's probably gonna get you.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. These 9-year-old girls, man, they are something else. Yeah, and we've got 2 older ones, 2 teenagers, and then we've got Liza who's, like, in the 4-year gap. So she's 4 years away from Millie, 4 years away from King. So she's kind of her own little separate entity, and
Yep, it's the island.
she is she's the island. Yeah, and so she's fun. But yeah, constant is I don't get to be alone very often, but and it's also like when you're doing normal human things like taking a shower, that's when you're alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not a vacation, but you take it.
Yeah. So while we're on the subject of your family, can you kind of tell me a little bit about your family? Like obviously I know about your family, but just for anybody who might not know, just
Yes.
kind of how many kids you got, you know, what that looks like, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, so we have 4 kids and then we have like some bonus kids that have entered our world just through like relationship and we call them our kids. We've got about 4 of those. So we've got they're older, they're college age students, so we're getting to speak into their lives in a different season and that's super fun. But the ones that we grew and live with us, we
I
have
like that. The ones
4.
we grew.
They yes, we grew them. Um we have Addie, she's 15. She turned 15 in April and she is the oldest to the T, everything you described or heard of an oldest child. She is that. She's great. She's full of talent, loves basketball, and she's an actress and singer and all the things. Millie is 13 and she is incredibly creative and um it's weird to have 2 teenagers in the house. That seems really I feel like I've hit another level of adulthood with 2 teenagers. Um it's weird. I don't know. I feel like I officially feel like my parents now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess when I remember that season of life with me and my brother in the house, but yeah, so Millie's 13 and she's very creative. She's absolutely hilarious. Her comedic timing is her father to 100%. She's so funny and she's really smart and it's been really cool to just have it now. We've already done a teenager, so we've got like 15-year-old. We've been through those stages. So it's not it's I don't know if the
Not
word
as
more
jarring.
enjoyable. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's me. Yeah. So now we're kind of like, and I'm enjoying, not that I didn't enjoy the first, but we were learning a lot. We were learning
Right.
a lot. Now that we've got our second teenager, she's 13. We've lived the year 13 already. So we're good now. Um, but it's been just really cool to watch her kind of come alive and what she loves. She loves musical theater, like loves obsessed. She lives in a musical. And she's great. And then we have Liza. She's 9. She's sugar and spice and everything nice. She's a leader to her core. She
Yeah.
cannot help it. Um, and the way she sees things, I mean, for a 9-year-old, her perception of how to get things done and the best way to get them done is kind of like I definitely was not thinking about that when I was 9.
Right.
Um, uh, she she is our strong but also so sensitive. She's very sensitive.
Yeah.
It's very tenderhearted. She's our worshiper. She loves Jesus.
Mm.
And she will not be swayed. I know that much. I'm like, I'm not worried about you.
Yeah.
When I send you out into the world, you're fine. Like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna sway you either way. And then we have the ultimate surprise, which is King Solomon,
Yeah.
number 4, the baby boy. And his real name is King Solomon. Solomon is his middle name. His first name's King. That's always the first question when I say anything about his name. Is that his real name? Yes. And he's 5, and he is introducing us to the world of boys, which is a totally different ball game
Yeah.
than what we're used to.
What
He
do you think is
is
like the that you've noticed even between like Liza's 5 and King's 5? Like what do you think is like the biggest difference that maybe you've noticed?
I think for us, the thing that I can't seem to stay ahead of King. Like he's always but okay, so Liza was kind of the same way in the sense of emotionally. Liza was always emotionally ahead of the game and he's always feeling the feels and doing all things. King is just like physically 3, 5 steps ahead of me all the time. He
Mm.
is always, I'm always having to like troubleshoot when I walk into a space. I'm like, okay, he could run here, he could run there, he could hide there, he could, um, because he thinks it's really funny to hide from people right now, and he thinks it's really funny to scare people.
Yeah.
So, he loves to hide. He thinks it's so funny, but it is the most frustrating thing. I've never had a kid that hides.
Yeah.
So, like, if we call out throughout the house, it's like we yell Bryant's a symbol, which is what, because we think we're the Avengers,
That's funny.
and everyone comes. Um, King's the one that's not there, and Liza's like, he's hiding underneath his covers, or he can get underneath our bed, so he can hide underneath Jeff and I's bed, um, and he can get under Addie's bed too, and Millie's bed. So he loves to. I mean, he just loves to
He's
hide.
got
He
all
thinks
the
it's
perfect,
funny.
especially at the size that he is now. He's got all the perfect hiding spaces. You better not
Yeah.
introduce him to the washer or dryer.
No, I know. No, that's where I'm getting at. Like like he just is always like, I bet I could fit there. I bet I could eat that. I bet I could eat that. That'd be fine.
I mean, to be
Like,
fair though, he is Jeff's kid.
I mean, yeah. Well, and he has 3 sisters. So he is, the poor boy is constantly mothered. I mean, he can't help it. And I'm always telling the girls, I'm like, we're just gonna let this one go. Like, we're not gonna say, I'm not gonna say anything, so you're not gonna say anything.
Gotta pick and
But
choose.
yeah, he's always, he jumps from couch to chair to table to chair to couch. He doesn't walk anywhere. He rides his scooter. He's got a scooter that like he rides throughout the whole house from the living room to the bedroom. He thinks it's funny to park it in front of Addie's room because Addie had a moment of frustration
Yeah.
because she was tired of it being left. So she was like, King, do not leave your scooter in front of my door anymore. So King heard, put your scooter in front of my door
Oh
every single
no.
time. So it's always there. Well, then finally, Addie quit giving a reaction. So now he's moved on to Millie. So now he parks his scooter and his bike. He has this little balance bike that he rides through the house,
Yeah.
and he parks both of them in front of Millie's door now. So he's waiting. I mean, he's definitely the baby. I mean, oh my
That is so
gosh,
funny.
he is
I
the
guess I didn't
baby.
realize like baby was actually a thing until like my youngest started getting older. Cause like
Mm-hmm.
she before, man, we were looking at videos like of her whenever she was like a toddler. And well, I mean, I guess she's still little, but she's not little. But like we were looking at videos and she was like, oh man, just very very lovey-dovey, very snuggly, very all the things, and then like
Yeah.
just overnight it seemed like things just started to shift, and like now she's using words like oh man, I can't even think. She's just using these big words in like in context. I'm like, what? And then there's other times where she's like, everybody leave me alone or I'm coming to get you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah, they flip that switch real fast. Yeah, King uses, I'm glad she uses big words. King uses words like skibbity toilet.
Oh no.
Yeah.
she she's still saying stuff like oh man, I can't even, I'm blanking on what she says. She just copies what her brothers and sisters say.
Well, I'm glad your kids don't say things like toilet riz and
Uh
from Ohio. I don't
they're
even know
not
what that means. They're cussing at me. I know they are. I don't have any idea.
they're
I
not
don't have any
terrible
clue what they're
about it,
saying.
but like they use like I guess you could say Gen Z slang instead of more like alpha. So the skibbity toilet and Riz and all that
I
junk, that's
don't
all
even
stuff from
know.
like the
I
new
don't even
generation.
know. I know they're all cuss words in my world. I think they're all cussing. They're just
Crazy
they
foolishness.
they
So
just
so how like with the size of family that you guys have got, because there's a total of what, six
Mhm.
of you guys?
Yeah.
So out of six, you guys are homeschooling, which by itself is its own job. Uh,
Yes.
what are some of the other things that like you're involved in?
So as a family, we do like we homeschool. We do musical theater. All of our kids are involved in musical theater throughout a homeschool group. They are heading into their third year doing that, or third semester doing that.
Oh,
It's
so
a
I've got
whole
a side question for that, right?
okay.
So, and this is gonna sound super random, and it's
I
probably
highly
because
doubt
it
it. We've been
is.
friends for a long time. I highly doubt it.
So the question that I've got with this, right, is out of the people that you guys have done like musical theater with, how many of those um how many of those like young people come from families where it's just a single mom, like just like a rough percentage?
Like they don't have a dad at all in the home, or like the mom is the only one who's taking care of majority of the things. Like which
Sure,
caveat?
sure.
Okay. So I would say 90%. We don't have a lot of that are like we don't like there's not a dad present at all,
Yeah,
but majority of the time it's really only the mom that is doing now now from what I see.
right.
Um so yeah, I would say in the homeschooling world
Yeah,
in general and in like the extracurricular world, you see the moms, I mean, 90% of the time.
right.
It's not a lot of interaction with
Sure, and
dads.
I feel like a similar interaction that like a lot of different like activities are. So like for instance, God has blessed our family to where I'm able to be in a place where like I am able to be around for like a lot of the stuff that our kids enjoy doing. So whether it's sports or if they're doing plays or whatever it might be, like God's just set it up to where we've been able to do that. But like in some of the spaces, so like for instance, I have coached almost all of my kids like sports in some capacity, whether it's softball, volleyball, uh, baseball, football, some kind of ball. I've probably been involved in it. Like I'm our kids youth pastors. We serve in the children's ministry, and so like in a lot of different ways, like we are involved. I'm involved in a lot of different areas. But like what I have noticed is, even if it is that the dad is there, but like just not around because he's working, like I've noticed that there's different like dynamics of like almost kind of how the kids are open to certain things that they wouldn't be open to like if dad is around as opposed to like if it's just mom. um and so I was just curious, especially in that kind of like in that context, like if you feel like that has an effect in maybe either some of the like wins or like some of the challenges like within the musical theater area. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, I think like for us, one of the commitments that Jeff and I made to each other in the very beginning, and there, like I said, we were talking about this before we started recording. There's seasons, so like you have moments where sometimes there isn't that flexibility, and you just kind of have to deal with the hand you've been dealt. But um, we made a commitment very early on because we pastored for years, and we just decided that whatever it looked like, we were going to do it as a family, and we were both going to be present. um and so
That's awesome.
like like you, Jeff's in a season where his schedule is a little more flexible, not as flexible at times, sometimes it's more flexible at times than others. um but he is able to be present, and it makes a huge difference, not just for our kids, but and also the kids that are around,
Yeah,
because they don't really see that dynamic very often. And I mean, our family is super complex. There's a lot of strong personalities.
yeah,
I mean, we're all strong. There is not there's not one person in our family that backs down easily. Um, but I think I love when people get to see our family all together and how we function as an entity together and
yeah.
all the pieces in place. We're better. And I say this all the time, we're better when Jeff's around. I'm
Yeah.
more at ease. And it's the same way I think in a lot of homes when the dad is good and present and kind and all the things he should be,
Yeah.
we just function better. I'm at ease, the kids are more at ease, um and other people are more at ease. And I've noticed that a lot watching when he comes into a space, people's response to him being there. um and that also speaks a lot for like his personality. Jeff's a peacemaker. He's strong and he'll challenge you for sure. But when he comes into a space, he brings, he wears those shoes of peace that are
Yeah.
with the gospel of peace. He comes into a space and he calms the room. And so it's very evident when he's around, and it's been important to us for people to see us at our best. When we're together, we're at our best.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he does a lot with us and like he's actually teaching at our co-op this year, um which is like it's the excitement. Let me just say this, the excitement for the students and having a male figure in the
Yeah.
space is crazy. Like, they all know, like, they get their moms all the time.
Right.
They're gonna get the other moms all the time, like, they're all there. And like I said, this isn't a dog on anybody who can't be there. Like, it is, and there's been seasons of our life where Jeff would not be able to be there. Um, but the students, especially the male students, are so stoked to have a dad
Yeah.
there. And, the moms are stoked to have a dad
Why do you
there.
think that is?
Jeff and I were just talking about this last night. I feel like dads are some dads are great at doing the provision thing. Like, we're the hunters and the gatherers. We bring the food home. We make sure that our family is taken care of. But emotionally, they're not always there. And
Yeah.
it's hard. And I think in this sort of realm of education that we're in the homeschooling world, it it dives more into the heart. Like, when we're homeschooling, and I mean any sort of if in particular homeschooling, we're really dealing with the heart of our kids, our students, and making sure that the heart and education go hand in hand. When you are when you're just doing that by yourself and as the mom, it's hard to mentor young men.
Yeah.
We I mean, we can say all the right things, but we haven't lived it. We don't have that
Yeah.
experience. And I think that having a masculine presence for a young man changes everything. Even if they don't even have a conversation with them, even if it's just guy high, the nod walking down the
Yeah.
hallway, I think it gives a safety and a camaraderie um in the space. And I think that these young men are excited to hear from a male perspective on some things, because their moms all day long are great, but what does this guy have to say about it?
Right.
So
We
so I
were
think
we were
that's what I
just
think.
talking a few months ago. The Our youth group, we're something I've been concentrating on is really investing in discipling, like the I guess the understanding of the way that God put together the family, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yes.
everybody has a role, right? And
Yes.
so, kind of the way that I was explaining to the kids was that, like, so God He has created two separate people, and the way that it's supposed to be is those two people are growing in faith and knowledge of the Lord. They are growing deeper in intimacy with the Lord, and they're continuing to grow. And they don't stop growing when they meet each other, they continue to grow. And then
Right.
whenever they meet each other, then they come together, realize that that is a good thing, and then they grow together. And
Right.
then as they're growing together and as they're sharing their faith, as they're showing their character, they're growing in work ethic, they're growing in all the things, and they're continuing to grow. Then they have a child or children, and then those children now become a part of the growth that they're experiencing. So
Yeah.
they help for them to grow, and those kids, whether it's 1 or 47 like us, like they are now growing, and then they're going to reproduce that same process, right? And
Yes.
it's one of the, what I like to call, the biggest mission field on the planet is the family. And that's the
Yes.
most important reason why it's important for us to, like, as families, keep families together, as we're growing in our faith, as we are dying to ourselves, as we're sacrificing, as we're doing all the different
Yes.
things, even leaning into some of the giftings that God has given us as a wife or a husband, as a man and a woman. Like, as God is giving us these internalized things, like, that just come natural. Obviously, there's anomalies for those situations, but like overall, like, God has put these things, these masculine tendencies, these nurturing tendencies, these
Yeah.
different things, and even some of the challenges that we kind of like struggle through. Like, one of the things that, like, really, I would say probably up until like 5 or 6 years ago, that I really, really, really struggled with was finding healthy ways to be able to express emotion. The
Yeah.
only emotions that I really realistically had a good grasp on what was healthy was anger and
Yep.
excitement sometimes, but not much,
Yeah.
and that came from, like, my dad, right? My dad is a great guy, has been in education for the last 25 plus years, retired, came to help me and my family. Amazing guy, right?
Yeah.
Raised us in the knowledge of the Lord, was a part of our discipleship process, like all of the things. But, like,
Yeah.
as he was growing up, he had some poor discipling. He
Yeah.
had some poor experiences that didn't leave a lot of room for emotional expression in a way that is healthy.
Right.
And so he was made the choice. Hey, I'm gonna do better than what I had, but it was only up to a certain level. And so, I'm trying to work towards. Anyway, so I said all that to say, like, representation matters, right?
A hundred
So,
percent.
like, whenever you're a young man and you're trying to figure out, what does it look like to treat women with respect? What does it
Right.
look like to show up in a place where attention can be put on you, but it's not, the attention is not necessarily for you. You're just living in the best version of yourself.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what does that look like? And so I'm always curious to see, like, in different areas, whether it is in musical theater or in, like, in my experience with sports, like, the guys, they just respond better to, like, not even just guys, like, because I coach my girls basketball team too, and, like, they're like, oh, TJ, and I see these kids one, maybe two times a week,
Yeah.
and it's for a span of 3 months. But then I still have little kids that come up, hug me. They're like, "Oh, we miss you. Are you going to be coaching next?" And
Yeah.
I'm most of the time I'm yelling at them, "Hey, get down the
Right.
court, block
Right.
out. What are you doing? Why are you moving so slow?" But it's
Right.
it's just that presence that you were talking about, you know?
Yeah. I think especially in the world that we're in the creative world, I think there's way less males around than there are females. And our kids, I mean, they poor things, whether they like it or not, their dad is a creative, he's got an acting background, a comedy background. He's a great writer, he's a teacher, so they have got that creative. And then they have me, and that's what I do for a living. I'm a performer, I'm a singer. That's what I do for a living. I teach people how to sing and how to be a worship leader. And so they've got it on both ends, like, it's happening whether they like it or not. And our kids have that in their DNA. And in the creative world, I feel like, well, and I think a lot of it has to do with not being taught how to healthfully express emotion. We're missing out on a chunk of men in this category. So, I mean, for Jeffrey, when it comes to his involvement in the actual theater, I mean, he runs our tech. He's our tech director, which thank God for him, because I'm there and present, but there's just things that my brain doesn't know.
Yeah.
So, and I think that whole world, that technology world, can be stressful. And I would probably just crawl in a corner and cry, where he is just like, oh yeah, you just move the cord here and you just do that and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But last semester we did a musical called Music Man, which you came to see. Thank you for supporting. Uh, and our whole family was in it, down to King. At the time he was 4, all the way up. Everybody was in it. I did the music. I was the music director. Jeff did our tech, and so we're back there. Jeff's running sound. He has a student with him, and it was really cool to watch these young male students interact with Jeff, and Jeff teaching them, like, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. Don't touch that button because that's going to do this. Like, just helping them connect, and watching other people respond to his presence, in the sense of like, oh, well, oh, we're not sure how that's going to work. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, Jeff might know, it's, even if it's something that he like definitely doesn't have any clue about.
Yeah.
They just are, they go to him. And I think in the creative space, it's imperative that we have a male presence, because I think for so long that's maybe been labeled um as a more feminine category. Men don't sing,
Yeah.
men don't act, men don't, or it's been, for lack of a better term, like, if a guy is an actor, it's because he's the heartthrob, or it's been sexualized. And
Right.
on both ends, I'm not even going to take that. I mean, I could get on a soapbox forever about that, but I mean, like, it's either they're the heartthrob or they're the dumb funny guy. We've never had a guy who can like express their emotions creatively in a way. We don't see that in the normal life. You see it in Hollywood, but you don't see it in normal life. I think it's important that our young men who feel like they are gifted in that manner see other men
Yeah.
act that out in front of them in the creative space, because it doesn't make you more feminine if you love acting, or if you love musical theater, or if you
Right.
love, like, that doesn't change the fact that you're a man. And
Right.
they need to see, even though Jeff isn't acting on stage, not this time, but he has in other seasons of his life, um them seeing him there in support of that is important. And I wish that there was more male presence in the creative space, in the homeschooling world. Now there are some, like, we have a close friend who he's taught the high school. Well, actually, I have two close friends who have taught their kids all the way through graduation, and have done that. But that's not always the case. So, uh, we're just better when we're together. So
Yeah.
we try to do everything together.
What would you say? And this may be kind of a loaded question, but
I love it.
what would you say it would take? Because I think we both know that, like, in order to run the world, like, there are certain things that have to be in play. Like, in order to be able to have a chance at having more than just enough money, that either somebody has to be working more, or
Right.
uh, the value in which the jobs that are being done has to be increased. And so, kind of with that desire that you express, like, what would you say would be like one thing that would need to happen in order for what you're talking about to kind of come true?
I think priorities are the one thing that one of the things that we decided early on was what was going to be more important. And like, I need to say, I'm not talking about like paying your bills, putting food on the table, the necessities. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is we kind of decided what is going to be more important, or to have all the things and do all the things, or to be present for the things and to have emotional connection and relationship with our kids. And we had to kind of shift some priorities around um to where we could do those things. I think people have lost the love of the family, like loving your family and just being with your family. A lot of people find more joy being away from their kids,
Right.
which like, don't get me wrong, I have joy when I am away from my children.
Yeah.
But I have really asked the Lord to help me have perspective on them, the things that are beautiful, not just the things that frustrate the mess out of me.
Right.
And so I think perspective and priorities have to take a step back. I grew up in a family that I had everything I ever wanted. I mean, there was
Mm.
not one physical thing that I could have asked for and not gotten. It can be great,
Yeah.
but I didn't always have the emotional support that I needed.
Yeah.
And that can fall on both ends. Like we're talking about your dad. My parents were wonderful and they still are wonderful. My mom's one of my absolute best friends. Um, and there were just times where they were like, they just didn't know how to deal with me emotionally.
Yeah.
So they sent me to school for someone else to deal with me emotionally, which is not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. That's what I'm saying. But they were not themselves in tune with how they were feeling and their emotions. So they were like, we don't know what to do with her.
Yeah.
And they just like would push me off on somebody else. And in turn, who probably didn't know how to deal with their emotions. And so then in turn, so then we end up overflowing with all these feelings. But I had everything I wanted. And so I come from the world of, I would much rather be more emotionally connected with my kids and be able to take them to Disney World.
Yeah.
Now go to being emotionally connected and taking your kids to Disney World are amazing, and do those things if you can do those things.
Right.
But we've had to really prioritize some things, make some huge financial sacrifices. I've had to become a hustler at times. Like you got to get a job where you can get a job.
Yeah.
You got to look at the hours you have open in the day um get work in the season that we're in with what I'm doing. I'm traveling and leading worship and singing at other churches and helping out at church plants that need worship leaders. There's a lot of weekends I'm gone.
Yeah.
But I have had to remind myself that I am present 99% of the time. This is like the 1% that I'm not home. And instead of like feeling guilty for that, it's like, no, you are very present. You're very much there. And my children are never, I'm never unavailable to my kids.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that the hard way. I mean, I went through 6 years where I was completely in,
Yeah.
and we paid for it major.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
think
our
that's something,
priorities.
especially any of us that are like in not just in ministry, anybody that has like obligations that or at least what we feel like are obligations, like we kind of struggle with that, almost kind of like a tug of war of I do have to provide. I am called to do this, but our first call is our family.
100%. I think if we, like for me, I was present physically, but not present emotionally, because all the things that I was doing physically was exhausting me. So I was
Yeah.
unavailable to be there emotionally.
Yeah.
And so then it's just becomes this spiral. And so you have to make an assessment of like, okay, is this working? Is this giving life?
Yeah.
Sometimes the good thing's not always the God thing, and you got your family's the first thing. And so we have to become very self-aware,
Right.
I think. and you just have to get rid of the things that aren't giving everyone in your family life.
Right.
So,
I think what it kind of reminds me of is like the coming to the place where we're maturing as adults and as people in general, that we give people space enough to grow and to be who it is that God has made them to be. But at the same time, in our involvement in those moments, like it's just as important that we establish, and this is something that I like that I kind of got from the way that you say you guys kind of run your house, is like that there are non-negotiables at home.
mhm.
There are
Mhm.
things that like you have to say, okay, so all this other stuff is great. I do believe that God called me to this and that this is what I'm supposed to be doing in this season. Uh, but there's almost that pressure where we're like, okay, so like, um, how much commitment do I actually owe this thing? Because
Yeah.
my main thing is to be making sure that I'm spending time with my wife. My main thing is to
Mhm.
make sure that my kids know that I'm there and that not only am I the disciplinary, but I also love spending time with them. I love being able to be in their presence. And these are a couple of things, and some of my outside of my intermediate family, like they're a priority as well.
Right.
Besides just TJ, the youth pastor, like I am a person who loves people and
Yeah.
I want to see those people win. And so I can do that in 50 different ways, but I just have to make sure that I am a good steward of what it is that God has like gifted me with. Because I believe that even your gifting to, whether it's sing, lead people into the presence of the Lord, teach, to be able to uplift, exhort people, exhort the body of Christ. These are all gifts that God has put on the inside of you. But I think that's also why you're able to like navigate in so many different areas, right? Sometimes we think it's like, oh, I'm grinding because you got to do what you got to do, and it's like, yeah, but if God hadn't put these different individual strengths that God has put on the inside of you, like you'd be up a creek without a paddle, you know.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
and so
Yeah, I go ahead.
I was just gonna say last question, and I promise we could do
Okay.
a part two when we got a little bit more time. But last question is, what do you think is? I'll say it like this: and this may you wrap it up the way that you need to, okay?
Okay. All right.
So what do you feel like is the most impactful thing that you have uh when I say impactful, I mean to you and your kids, the most impactful thing that you have recognized in both Jeff and your dad?
Oh, 100% being level-headed and being um very thoughtful of things. My dad was never quick to make a decision, which can be really frustrating if you're a personality like me, because I'm
Yeah.
like, we just say yes and we get it done, and then we'll clean up the mess afterwards.
Yeah.
But my dad was a slow to speak, slow to anger type personality,
Yeah.
and and my mom, she talks about this all the time. She says there's so many characteristics she sees in that my husband has that my dad had,
Yeah.
and it's that we're gonna think this through. Like, we're gonna be thoughtful about it. We're not gonna run away with the decision, um, and not getting worked up about much. Which, thank God, they don't, because my dad never really got worked up about much, and
Yeah.
neither does my husband. And that brings such a peace to your home when you have someone who likes to think things through with the full picture and the full perspective in mind, and goes back to the word of God and is like, okay, let's look at this. Let's think about this. Then there are some times where he does make a quick decision, and it's because he knows if he lets it sit for too long, I'm going to change my mind.
Yeah.
So he's like,
Yeah.
nope, this is what we're doing. This is what we've made. We're
Yeah.
stamping it. We've paid the money. It's done. It's happening. And we're not, those are two things, my dad, he was a very calming presence.
Yeah.
And, but hilarious and ornery and loved to bring fun. And Jeffrey is a very calming presence. And that is a necessity in our home, all the strong personalities that we have. And that he keeps that peace at all times. And that's definitely a common thread that they both share, which I didn't really even realize that God knew I needed that. So he put someone in my life who's like, she just needs a steady. She
Yeah.
just needs a rock steady that is always going to be there for her and keep her calm in her moments of panic.
Yeah.
And giving me the father that I had and giving me the husband that I have.
Yeah.
There's that common thread through both of them that they are just rock steady. And I pray my girls find husbands that are like that. And I pray that my son catches that from his dad, that peacemaker, rock steady
He will.
personality.
He will.
So other than, right now he's just flying from thing to thing, but hopefully
He's got time.
he'll get it. He's got time, right? We're not going to rush
time.
it because he's got time.
Well, Jill, there are a million other questions that I could think to ask you. But again, I want to be respectful of your time. And last thing, I want to give you an opportunity to share if you want. I know that coming up in, what is it, tomorrow or is it the next day that your single's dropping?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even, when you said that, I was like, no, it's like in a couple weeks. I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow I released my first single of a song called Come Home that I wrote myself and went into the studio and recorded. And it is a love letter from the Lord to us and an invitation to come home and just rest in the arms of Jesus. And I say I wrote it, but I really didn't. I really believe that God wrote it, and he just picked me to share it. And I'm just so overwhelmed, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. I can't wait for people to hear it and find rest in it and feel a sense of peace when they hear it. And so yeah, that comes out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And it'll
I'm
be
like,
on
Jill is
Spotify
finally
and Apple
recording.
Music.
I'm telling you, I've been waiting for about 15 years. I'm like, why? What is taking so long? Why? But it's better late than never.
That's right. That's right. And I think the timing, I know I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, man, I'm almost 40. Like, why is it taking so long? And they remind, and I was kind of
impactful, like worship leader / recording artist that is over 40.
Who?
Rita Springer. You probably could have guessed it. I would have said that.
Oh, she's a queen.
Amazing.
I love Rita Springer. And I love her. And I think, but my friend, she said to me, she was like, God's timing is perfect. She's like, we're not even going to think about shoulda, coulda. We're just going to say, this was what the Lord, and that is a part 2 conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. August 15th, tomorrow, it is going to be available for everyone to listen to. And
on the Spotify and iTunes, right?
Yep, Spotify and iTunes. Awesome. So those are the 2 we're working with right now.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I appreciate it. I would love for you to come back another time to be able to record another podcast and wait to just have people to be able to watch the conversation and be able to gain some things from it. And so, yeah, thank you. And
thank you for having me. You're the best, TJ.
No problem. Thank you. Guys, this has been Show Me Better in Real Life, the podcast with my super awesome special guest, Jill Bryant. Make sure that you go ahead and check out
Come Home.
Come Home. on Spotify and iTunes for sure. Other ones in the future. Thanks, guys.
Yes.